and things like that, and it's always the beautiful people. Everything has to be beautiful and perfect. And so someone with a disability is seen as not beautiful, not perfect. That doesn't fit our society's image of what we want to be. If I apply for a job and that job interviewer sees me come in and sees me come in with my guide dog, and if they have a preconceived stigma about a blind person, what a blind person can do, it absolutely is going to affect my ability to get that job. It can block someone with a disability from being able to live and work as an equal member of society, because that landlord might not let me have that apartment because he or she's afraid that I'm going to burn the building down.
The biggest misconception about people with disabilities is that having a disability makes a person incapable of making a real contribution to their family, their community, their society, and their workplace. But I was in a position where I was giving a day-long presentation to 7 different classrooms full of students, and I'd worked with the teachers who were coordinating this presentation for months, but they'd never met me in person. And I get there at 7 o'clock in the morning as school's opening, and they happen to see me with all my paraphernalia, and oh my goodness, we don't need you to present all day. We'll just point at you and we want you to say yes or no to a question. And I said, what changed between 3 o'clock yesterday when we got off the phone and this morning? Well, we didn't realize how difficult it was going to be for you. And I said, talking isn't difficult. And it took me a few minutes before I realized it was that they were uncomfortable with watching something they perceived as a struggle because I don't breathe in quite the same rhythm everyone else does, because my body moves a little bit differently when I speak.
And I think people need to do some soul searching and see if they carry a stigma that may be hurting someone else.
There's an assumption, too, that anybody that has a disability is suffering. And that's just not so. I am a happy, fulfilled, involved, engaged, and in every aspect of the word person. And I fight like hell to stay alive and have a full life. And so the stereotype that everybody that's in a wheelchair or anybody that has a disability is suffering it's just not true.
Part of the lived experience includes disability. To think that you are either abled or disabled at its heart is a misunderstanding. If you are not currently identifying yourself as disabled, in all honesty, you simply aren't identifying yourself disabled right now.
Have you ever heard of the term inspirational porn? Should we be inspired by the everyday activities of people with disabilities?
Basically what it is, it's objectifying people with disabilities for the purpose of furthering a cause that has nothing to do with them. So if an everyday task is inspiring, it's about the task, not the person. The part that makes it inspirational is disability as a metaphor for can't do, for incompetent, for always in need of support, for not being able to think.
For me, it's exploiting individuals with disability for the sake of getting a word out or a message. And so for me, as a person with a disability, it's insulting and devaluing.
There's nothing that wrong with inspiration. I mean, we see our favorite athletes, our favorite artists, and we're inspired by them to engage in our own artistic or sporting endeavors. I think where it becomes a problem is when people say, oh, it's not that I'm inspired that you climbed Mount Everest, but I'm inspired that you got up in the morning and brushed your teeth.
And it could be that Theo, my friend Theo, inspires me because of what he does. Not because of what he does because he has a disability, but because of what he does.
That carries with it a message of, I didn't expect you to be able to do that. I didn't expect you to be able to lead any part of your life independently. And I think that's where it turns from inspiration, which is legitimate, to inspirational porn, which is the celebration of everyday life.
It seems to me that the more we use inspiration based on disability, the more our assumptions about what people can't do increase.
You just do what you do because you're a person who has to live their life. It doesn't make you incredible or inspirational. It just means that you're a person working to live a quality of life that you want to live. And they have hope. They can give hope to other people who are struggling, but they're not seen in the mental health community as inspirational.
You're impressed because somebody in a wheelchair is doing things that you in your mind think they shouldn't be able to do. It's easier to kind of get over that awkwardness of you're in a wheelchair and I don't really know how to talk to you about that, so I'm just going to say, wow, you're inspiring. I appreciate all you do. I think it's great that you do this. I think it's great that you run this program.
But people come up to me in the grocery store, when I'm out to dinner, or when I'm babysitting my nieces and I take them to the movies. Oh, it's so wonderful to see you out. You're such an inspiration. If seeing someone live an everyday typical life inspires you, you either need to do something with that inspiration or you need to look at changing your own life so that you don't gather your inspiration from people you see as less than who are able to accomplish the same things as you. Go inspire yourself.
So let's fight the stigma against people with disabilities. Everyone has a role. Make the choice today to implement a few simple changes, and together, we can make a difference.
I think it is true that most people want to do the right thing, and that's why I think it's so important for us to create opportunities for people to do the right thing. So I think one of the things that we can all do is be an advocate. We can all be an advocate for people with disabilities.
If you allow stigma to influence how you approach, how you relate, and deal with people with disability on a day-to-day basis, you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on some valuable relationships. You're going to miss out on some valuable friendships. You're going to miss out on some valuable knowledge. Because the first thing, they don't see me as a person. They don't see me as a father. They don't see me as a teacher, professor. They don't see me as a coach. They don't see none of that. They see the chair. Because most of the time you just walk right past me until you get an opportunity to know my story. And you can only know my story if you take a moment to listen to me. And then all of those myths and misconceptions and stereotypes begin to fall away, and you start really seeing me as a person.
You're thinking, hey, what can I do? Well, how can you make anything that you're already doing more accessible? How can you think about something that you already do in a different way that might make it accessible to somebody new? How can you broaden your audience?
And raise questions about accessibility when you know that people who have a certain kind of disability aren't going to have access.
And let's talk to some people who have that disability so we can get to know them and see what's really going on in their lives.
Sit in a diner and you get to know people. They have hearts, they have souls. They just want what we all want.
But it never will be changed unless you get over your fears and approach people with all types of disabilities. And if you never walked up to a person with disability and shook their hand, then do that. If you don't know what to say what you say to anyone else without a disability. How about that? Your belief about people based on real experiences and not just myths and misconceptions, but real experiences. And you can't have real experiences without interaction.
I make a conscious effort when I am interacting with someone with a disability to ask myself, how would I behave if this person didn't have this apparent disability? Social contact is one of the most effective ways of reducing stigma.
And I find that for the most part, if you're respectful and kind and own up to your ignorance, folks are pretty nice to you.
Instead of walking away, walk towards somebody with a disability and sit down or whatever and have a conversation and find out more about them than what you assume in how they look or how they act or how they're behaving, and really find out who they are as a person. And then you'll see how quickly the disability isn't at the forefront anymore, and you find out who they are as a human being.
We just need to get into a mindset as to how do we value input, how do we value friendship, how do we value relatedness with everyone. Be open-minded, ask questions rather than assuming. Many people with disabilities will not be offended if you ask. Sometimes being really upfront about what's in your heart, it goes heart to heart instead of head to head. And I think it works a lot better.
First and foremost, become aware of your profound and overwhelming privilege. And then become aware of how you can extend your privilege to others by raising awareness, by ensuring that your friends with disabilities aren't stigmatized. You can be someone who is a non-proliferator of stigma, and thereby be somebody who is dismantling stigma. When you see a meme online, you can be a proliferator of stigma by sharing that meme, or you could be someone who at least tries to muffle it by not sharing it, or you could be somebody who actively works against stigma by perhaps sending your well-intentioned friend a nice note saying, hey, I know you meant for that to be motivational and you meant well, but hey, consider this other perspective that I've learned. My guess is that your friend will appreciate your consideration, and likely that person won't share things that are responsible for the dehumanization of millions of people.
We need to educate people all the way through the school system about this, so that they can't jump to those conclusions that are built up in the newspapers.
I think that when we are willing to get out of our boxes and look at and try things differently, we actually can make difference in these issues.
And the community benefits from everyone. The more inclusive we are, the more creativity, the more intelligence we bring to our society as a whole.
In the long term, we always make progress. In the long term, things always get better. You will learn from people with mental illness a whole range of creativity and intellect. You'll learn from people with autism whole new ways of doing things and seeing the world and responding to the world, and it will open up your world. Then that's the bonus round benefit for the whole society, is to have a more open, diverse culture, not just around disability.
It's not just about us and them. The world really can become a place of we. And wouldn't that be a phenomenal thing to leave for our kids?